The Genius Files, Mission Unstoppable, written by Dan Gutman. Welcome back, warrior friends. We are ready for Chapter 3 in our story, The Genius Files, Mission Unstoppable. Chapter 3 is called Flying. Chances are you've never fallen off of a cliff. If you had, you probably wouldn't be reading this right now because you would be dead. But have you ever jumped off of a high diving board? Have you ever dropped into a steep water slide or a half pipe? Have you ever been on a really high roller coaster? Well, forget it, because falling off of a cliff is nothing like any of those experiences. You still have no idea what it was like for the McDonald twins that day. When you fall off of a cliff, the first 40 or 50 feet is a straight vertical drop. The only thing you feel at the first second or two is sheer terror. You can't think about anything else. And the good thing is, and this is probably the only good thing, you can't worry about your problems. If your parents had been bugging you or some kid at school is hassling you, you don't think about it anymore. Or if you had an ache or a pain in any part of your body, it's gone instantly. In fact, you can't think at all. You can only experience. It's all sensory. Your nervous system goes into survival mode and nothing else matters. You may even lose control of your bladder. Luckily, in this case, that didn't happen. But after they tumbled over the edge, the twins spun and twisted and flopped around in the air, screaming their heads off the whole time. One thought did flash through Coke's brain for a millisecond. I just pushed my sister off a cliff. What had he done? But he had no choice. If he hadn't pushed Pepsi and then jumped, he surely would have taken one of those poison darts in the neck, just like that lady Maya did. He had made a snap decision, and he'd have to live with it. Or die with it. Rocks, ledges, and trees shot past Pepsi's eyes as she plummeted, and something flashed through her mind for just a millisecond too. I will never be nice to my brother again. This was the last straw, she thought. She would never again update Coke's iPod for him, or help him pick out clothes so that he wouldn't look too nerdy. Not that it would matter, because they would both are about to die. Now, when you're at an amusement park, no matter how terrifying the ride is, you know you're not going to die at the end. Somebody with an advanced engineering degree has carefully designed the thrill ride to simulate weightlessness. You know that thousands of people have taken the same ride before you did, and they all survived. You know that a safety inspector with a clipboard is required by law to check to make sure the ride is safe. And you know that after a minute or two, the ride is going to come to an end. You'll climb out of the little car or whatever and go enjoy some cotton candy. But when you're flying off of a cliff, there are no such assurances. At the end of a free fall, your body will most likely smash into a hard surface on the ground with thousands of pounds of pressure crushing your flimsy bones. Your internal organs are going to explode like water balloons. Or maybe you'll get dashed against the rocks on the side of the cliff or fracture your skull on the way down. And isn't that an unpleasant way to die? But then again, it could be quick and painless. 1 second into the free fall, Coke and Pepsi were moving at about 30 miles per hour straight down. The wind was whipping right past them as they accelerated, pulling at their skin on their cheeks. There was a loud roar in their ears, like the sound of a jet taking off in their head. Through squinted eyes, Coke could see Pepsi below him, flailing her arms and legs and trying to turn herself around. At that point, they were dropping like stones. By 3 seconds into their free fall, they were close to 60 miles per hour and still picking up speed. Coke had once leafed through a physics book in the library, and he'd learned a few things about falling objects. For instance, any falling object will accelerate until it reaches what is called terminal velocity. For human beings, that's 120 miles per hour. But terminal velocity varies depending on the object that's falling. A large flat object, like a piece of paper, will fall a lot slower than a penny. When the twins stuck out their arms and their legs, their rate of descent slowed down. Suddenly, Coke realized that what he was doing. He had seen a YouTube video about something called wingsuit base jumping just a few weeks earlier. People were jumping off cliffs wearing these strange-looking wingsuits, and they could actually fly. It blew his mind. Coke had been so intrigued enough to do a Google search of wingsuit base jumping. Go ahead and look it up. People actually jump off cliffs for fun. And they've been doing it since the 1930s. According to legend, 72 of the first 75 people who tried it died. But then, in the 1990s, a French skydiver named Patrick McGrader developed a wingsuit that actually worked. Well, it worked some of the time anyway. He died in 1998 after jumping off a cliff in Hawaii. But other skydivers took up the sport, and better wingsuits were designed. Coke realized he didn't have to die. The wingsuit could save him. And at 4 seconds, Coke remembered what Maya had told them. Extend your arms and legs, and you'll soar like a hawk. Not to get all scientific on you, but if you throw gravity, acceleration, air resistance, and hundreds of feet of vertical drop into the equation, then you add fabric of a wingsuit as it rushes past the wind like the wing of an airplane, you begin to get lift. And when you're falling off of a cliff, lift is a very good thing to have. When wearing a wingsuit, you can manipulate your flight by changing the angle of attack or the position of your body, or by loosening or tightening the fabric of your wingsuit. A typical skydiver will free fall for 110 to about 140 miles per hour. But wearing a wingsuit, you can eventually reduce that to as little as 25 miles per hour. So Coke extended his arms and his legs as far as he could, and instantly he felt the air resistance. He was starting to move not just down, but also forward. He felt himself slowing and leveling off like a glider. The air rushed by and caught the fabric between his limbs, and the wingsuit billowed out. His body had been turned into an airfoil. He looked down and saw that his sister had figured out the same thing. If you were standing on the beach on that sunny day and you looked up, you would have seen two almost teenagers slingshotting overhead face down with their arms and legs wide apart to catch the wind. They were flying. Now, from the dawn of time, when the first primitive humans looked up into the sky and they saw birds up above them, they probably wished that they could fly. How glorious would it be to soar overhead? For all of our intelligence, all of our technology, all the progress that we've made over the centuries, many of us would be happy to give it all up if only we could become birds. Being a human is great. Nothing beats being at the top of the food chain. Opposable thumbs are handy and all for picking up things, but if only we could fly. Coke took a moment to look around. Below was the beach. To the right in the distance, he could see his neighborhood. The cliffs of Point Reeves were more than 1,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean. It looks like a long way down when you're standing on the beach and you're looking up. But from the other direction, as you're dropping, it doesn't seem that far at all. Just as Coke and Pepsi were starting to relax and their heart rates were returning to something approaching normal, both of the twins had the same terrible thought. How am I supposed to land? They were moving at almost 60 miles per hour. I mean, you wouldn't jump out of a car that was moving at 60 miles per hour. The wingsuits had no source of power. to keep them up in the air, and without a source of power, gravity always wins in the end. Their eyes widened as they saw the objects on the ground getting bigger. There wasn't a lot of time. Coke looked down. The thing had to have a parachute attached to it. I mean, in all the old war movies, skydivers always pulled a ripcord to open a chute. The ground was coming up fast, and desperately Coke reached behind him. His hand found some cloth, and he yanked it. The material gave way, and Coke felt something happening behind him. He turned around to see a huge red canopy unfurling over his head. Then there was a jolt when the canopy caught the air. And then, as it opened all the way, it yanked him and slowed him down even further. He saw Pep's yellow chute open up just before his did. She was about 200 feet in front of him. They weren't flying anymore. They were floating. Woo-hoo! Coke shouted. Somewhere in the back of his brain, he remembered hearing an expression, hit the ground running. He knew what that meant. It meant to get started on a project quickly. But now he realized where that expression came from. A parachutist has to hit the ground running. If parachutists don't, they're going to hit the ground hard and probably break their legs. The twins felt themselves touch the sandy beach and ran as if they were being chased by a pack of wild dogs. It felt like they had been in the air for an eternity, but in fact, it had been less than 10 seconds. Panting and breathless, Pep forgot what she had thought about her brother after he pushed her off the cliff. She ran over and hugged him tightly, and then she got down on all fours and kissed the ground. That's the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4 is called Home Sweet Home. Thanks for joining me today. We'll read Home Sweet Home next time.